Live from Toronto, Canada, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio, AM 740.
And welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Come on in, weary traveler. Hang your cloak on a peg, grab a stool, and come gather round the fire. There are stories to be told, and you are among friends. Carlos Cagina is my technical producer. Ryan White is my live stream producer. And yes, we are live streaming on YouTube tonight. My YouTube channel is Strange Planet. And we also upload shows to Rumble, rumble.com. The Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. And I think once we figure out how to live stream on Rumble, we'll probably move everything over there. I just got in the house, maybe an hour ago here in Old Thornhill. The family and I came back from Brantford to visit my mom, who is 96 and still going strong. And on the way back, we got caught in a deluge. The kind of rain, well, you know what I mean, with the wipers can't keep up even at full speed. And then you get behind like a tractor trailer and all 18 wheels are throwing more water at you. And suddenly it's like you're on board the Maid of the Mist heading into the whirlpool at Niagara Falls. It was a little tense, kind of some white knuckle moments there. In fact, I'm still holding onto the steering wheel. Haven't been able to pry it out of my hands. Anyway, dare I say it was biblical? I know that's kind of shop worn, but it's true. I could have sworn I heard God in my head calling out measurements in cubits. Right. What's a cubit? I guess it's not politically correct to make allusions to Bill Cosby routines anymore. Anyway, we're going to continue in the biblical vein for the next 2 hours, or 90 minutes anyway. The book of Revelation, the most mysterious, cryptic book in the Bible, the final book of the New Testament, also called the Apocalypse of John, Revelation to John, or Revelation from Jesus Christ. So what is the book of Revelation trying to tell us? Who are the major characters? What does it say about the end times, the Antichrist, the mark of the beast? Documentary filmmaker Ali Siadatan is here for the first hour and part of the second to discuss Revelation. In fact, he has a new weekly series on this prophetic book of the Bible coming up every Thursday night, I believe, on Zoom, but he'll tell us more about that. The last half hour of the program, open lines, ask me anything. Now, before we get rolling, a shout out to our Star Chamber tier supporters on Patreon: Dr. Lyle E. Gross, Deep Paul, and Tim Sullivan. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for your generous support. And all of the work I do here is possible in part because of generous supporters like you. And if you'd like to become an official donor to the program, go to patreon.com/Strange Planet. And there are several donor tiers to choose from. Pick the one that's right for you, or just give whatever you'd like. And I'm, again, truly, truly grateful for all of your support. Patreon.com/Strange Planet. The book of Revelation, as I say, the final book of the New Testament, has some of the most dramatic and frightening language in the Bible. There are some pretty scary images as well. Bright red beasts with 7 heads and dragons, monsters and cosmic eruptions. There are 7 plagues and bowls of wrath, 7 seals and 7 trumpets, the Whore of Babylon and the Battle of Armageddon. What does it all mean? Ali Siadatan is the founder of Think Again Productions in Canada, a multimedia teaching ministry shedding light on mysteries and treasures of scriptural knowledge, which is making the Bible more real than ever. Ali has found evidence, keeps agreeing with the Bible's tale, from biblical cities peering through the sand to alien abductions and prophetic events. Ali, welcome back. How are you, buddy?
Hello, Richard. Very good. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. First of all, let's get the details here on the Zoom series you're doing on Revelation. It's every Thursday starting next week, I believe.
Yes, it's easy to remember. It starts on October 7th for 7 weeks, and it's 70 minutes a series, a session, and starts this Thursday night. People interested, they will email me through the website, thinkagainproductions.com, and I'll gladly send them the Zoom link. It's free. We just ask for a donation. Hopefully the person comes and really loves it and says, wow, this had a lot of value for me, and then can donate then. And yes, you're saying that the book of Revelation has a heptatic nature. It's a lot of sevens. And so my study is kind of,
I see. October 7th and 17 minutes, all sevens.
And 7 weeks. That's the duration of it. It goes till November 18th.
All right. So it is very cryptic.
Yes.
It is for us, but I guess for the people who lived in the first century AD, who were familiar with, I guess, what they call apocalyptic literature, a lot of these metaphors and symbolism would have been more apparent to those readers. Is that correct?
There might be a truth to that perspective. Basically there's 400 verses in the book of Revelation and 800 references to the Old Testament. So it's 400 verses and 800 references to the Old Testament. So it heavily draws from virtually all the books of the Bible. People often say, it draws from the book of Daniel, for instance, or from Isaiah. But actually, it draws from virtually every single book of the Old Testament. And once you kind of factor that in and trace back all the reference points, already that exercise alone makes it a little bit less cryptic, because it is drawing from books that we are already familiar with, using metaphors that have already been established. So that alone, but it'll still remain cryptic in the sense that I'm not even sure this book is meant to be completely to be understood ever. Perhaps it's a testimony of God's foreknowledge and command over the creation, that he declares things before they occur. And yes, it is a book to bless us and to guide us. And I think it's partly the reason it blesses us is because it takes us in all these books of the Bible. That's something an old Bible scholar used to say. His name was Chuck Missler. He used to say, the book of Revelation blesses us because it takes us through the entire scripture to understand it. So, even with all of that, it will remain a little bit cryptic. I think as we go deeper into the apocalypse, then God may continue to reveal and open this book up to us. The reason, for instance, I'm running this series is because we've all noticed that there's essentially an explosion of interest and demand from people wanting to dive into this book.
Right. And I think also for people who aren't Christians or who are nominal Christians, I think it's still a significant book because there are all sorts of cultural allusions to Revelation. So I think people can appreciate it at that level. But let's start with some basic info here. So I mentioned first century, but when do we know specifically when it was written? So, for example, how long after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ? Where was it written, and by whom, do we think?
So if we kind of were to just accept everything at face value, the book of Revelation starts by telling us that the author is John, who was one of the disciples, one of the original 12 disciples of Jesus. His Hebrew name is Yochanan, and it means that God is grace. He lived in Capernaum, or he was a fisherman in Galilee. But he also seems like a very well-connected dude, because when Jesus has been arrested, he gets to go in because it says in the Gospels that he knew the high priest. Well, how did he know the high priest, and how could he go in? It also says that it's the only gospel that records the interaction with Nicodemus, who was a member of the leading religious council that led Israel, the Sanhedrin. And again, that points to the fact that he may have been in the room when that conversation was happening with Jesus. So he must have been from some priestly pedigree. Even when they ran to the tomb at the resurrection, he got there before Peter, but he didn't go in. If he was a Kohen, a priest, then he could not have any contact with the dead. And so, yes, we say he was a fisherman from Galilee. I remember being in the city of Capernaum, or in that little archaeological site of Capernaum in the north of Israel, and around the Sea of Galilee. And after the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, a lot of the Judeans moved north, and they renovated the synagogue of Capernaum, where Jesus had been teaching. You can still see the foundation of the synagogue where Jesus had been teaching, but on top of that foundation, they built a more glorious, synagogue. And there's a pillar there that has some of the names of the donors who donated money to the building of the new synagogue. And the Zebedee family is mentioned on that pillar as one of the donors, and that was the last name, if you will, of John. He was the son of Zebedee. So it seems that his family was living there still 2 centuries afterwards, after the time of Jesus. They had roots in that region. And what happened after he became this disciple? Well, the persecution against the Christians began because they are advocating for monotheism inside of the polytheistic Roman Empire, and one by one they were arrested, killed. Like Paul, was beheaded in Rome in 68, I believe, and Peter famously was crucified upside down on the site where the Vatican is built, and John was tortured, but ultimately he wasn't killed. He was exiled. And he was exiled from the area of Asia Minor, which is like Turkey today, the Aegean Sea. There were 7 congregations there, and he was the bishop of these 7 congregations. They each had a leader, but he was kind of the leader of the leaders. And then he was exiled off the coast of the Aegean Sea, just to create some distance between him and this movement that he was leading, especially since that area was a very religiously sensitive area for paganism and for the Roman Empire's religions. Some of the main cults of centers of worship in the entire Roman Empire were in Asia Minor, in Pergamum, and in virtually all the cities that we see in the book of Revelation mentioned as the receivers of this book. This book was written as a letter. So John was working and bringing people out of idolatry in a very key spiritual stronghold, that once that spiritual stronghold fell, then the wave of monotheism could now run through the empire. That's how significant it was. So he was then exiled to the island of Patmos, which is close to that area, where we see the book of Revelation find him. An angel is sent by God, apparently, to convey this incredibly important message that the Father gave to the Son. So this is a communique between, what Christians would call the first person of the Trinity to the second person of the Trinity. And Jesus, who's now received all authority and power in all of creation, then dispatches a messenger, a malak, and says, go, or angelus in Greek, go to Yohanan, this guy, the bishop of these 7 congregations, exiled in the island of Patmos, and there tell him these things, but it's hidden in signs and symbols. It even says that at the beginning, that it's put in the language of symbology, in the sense that not that the book of Revelation is a book of symbols. No, it actually is a book of prophecy. It's very clear, meaning it tells the future of the past, but it uses signs and symbols to communicate that. And so there's a cave there that tourists and pilgrims can visit today, that is manned by the Greek Orthodox Church, that continues to clean it and maintain it. And it was apparently in that cave where John was living when this angel visited him, and the jury's out whether it was Saturday or Sunday. It says that it was in the day of the Lord, and so he was Jewish. He kept the Sabbath. Was it Sunday or Saturday? One of those 2 days. when he was worshiping, he had this divine appointment, and this angel arrived and told him to write this as a letter to the 7 congregations that he was shepherding in Asia Minor. So it ends up being a letter, like all the other letters that are in the New Testament, except this is a letter that is written by Jesus. 7 letters are written to 7 congregations. That's how the book really begins.
Right.
And so these are
it
called
also
the
begins with
Christine letters.
It also begins with a vision, does it not? Does John feel as if he has been, I guess, like Enoch in the book of Enoch, he's sort of raptured up into the throne room. Is John similarly in this vision raptured into the throne room?
Yes, that happens in chapter 4.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right.
No, that's it. But yeah, he meets the angel right on the island, and then he receives visions in his mind at the same time as he's receiving words. So he's hearing and seeing things. But later in chapter 4, the angel says, "Come up." But that comes a few chapters in. So people don't realize that Jesus also wrote 7 letters to 7 congregations, because they're tucked into this little book, the book of Apocalypse. We think of the letters of Paul, the letters of Peter, the letters of Jude or John, but we don't think of the letters of Jesus. But
right.
Jesus wrote 7 letters, actually.
And so 7 letters to 7 different churches. So I guess in some letters he's admonishing the church. In other letters he's supporting another church. Hold fast, because at this time essentially the church is under siege, right? I mean, Rome is on the rampage. They have just leveled the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Many Christians now have fled into exile, like John, to Patmos, and others. So, can Revelation be looked at almost as a war book?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It was technically, they say it was written around 95 AD. So all of these things, you're right. That the temple has now been destroyed, that the exile of the Jews has begun, and the Christians are under siege by the Romans, who are now carrying out a series of persecutions against them. There'll be 10 persecutions in all, and will go all the way into the 4th century until the Edict of Tolerance by Constantine. So you're right. There is this feeling of, what is going on. And it's really nice because the very first chapter of the book of Revelation is dedicated essentially to establishing the lordship and sovereign, the lordship of Jesus. That essentially, he's driving home the point that all power has been given to him. He's the Alpha and he's the Omega, and that there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to be afraid of. Because the kingdom of darkness is collapsing, and that all authority in heaven and earth has been passed down to him. It's a continuation of again, as I said, it takes us into the rest of the Bible. It's a continuation of some of the things that started when he was with them. Like one day, he took them up this road to Caesarea Philippi, where there's all these pagan Roman temples. It was the center of worship for the Romans. And he stood on top of that rock and he said, "Who do people say I am?" And then Peter said, "You're the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus, pointing to, not to Peter, but to the rock, to all of these pagan temples, he said, "Upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of Hades won't prevail against it." Where those pagan temples existed in Caesarea Philippi, the rock upon which he stood, at the bottom there was a water. It's a giant hole. It's still there, but it was
like a cistern.
Like a cistern. This water would swirl and go into the ground. And when you pray to the gods, you throw your sacrifice there. And if it went down, then your prayer was accepted. If not, it wasn't. And that was called the gates of Hades. That was the official name of that place, because it was the gateway to this realm of these gods. And so Jesus, proclaims the ascension of his sovereignty and the defeat of these spiritual powers that are over Rome and these other kingdoms, when Paul is on his way to Damascus in order to arrest the Jewish people who become followers of Jesus in the synagogue of Damascus. He has a vision and he receives his mission, and he repeats that to King Agrippa as well, that his mission is to go to the Romans and to bring them out of darkness to light, out of the dominion of Satan to God. This is the mission that Jesus gives Paul. And so we get this idea that there's a transfer of power in the heavenlies. And now Jesus is saying basically, do not worry. I know that you live in the stronghold of idolatry, you 7 congregations, but don't worry. First of all power has been given to me. Second of all, don't let this, the paganism follow you into the congregations. That's a reoccurring theme in these letters, that there was this influence. They were bringing it in with them. Their old life was kind of pouring into their new life.
Okay, Ali, I got to jump in here because we're going to take a quick time out. In also one of these letters, maybe when we come back, we can touch on this. In one of these letters, he calls out one of the churches where exists the throne of Satan, or the altar to Zeus, which he identifies as the throne of Satan. Ali Siadatan, Think Again Productions, as we deep dive into the book of Revelation right here on The Conspiracy Show. Back with more in a moment. Don't go away.
Question everything. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio.
Attention giants. We ask that you take the news to your giant friends and families.
Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon 60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio.
Ali Siadatan stays with us. Go to thinkagainproductions.com and you can contact Ali through the website, thinkagainproductions.com, and sign up for his free series, webinar, I guess, happening Thursday nights. And this is it's a 7-part series on Revelation.
Yeah, we're going to do all 22 chapters.
All right. And it's Thursday nights. What time again? Eastern?
7 p.m. Eastern.
Of course. October 7th it begins, 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you missed the first one, don't give up. You can you'll be posting the recorded versions as well, so people can jump in at any point, right, and catch up.
Absolutely.
All right. And it's a free series, but feel free to make a donation. Again, go to thinkagainproductions.com and contact Ali through the website to sign up for the webinar series. All right, so I've got kind of a blueprint here, Ali, because we have much to get through, to give people just a very general sense, and then obviously in the web series you'll be drilling down. But so we were talking about the letters to the 7 churches of Asia in Revelation. Is it not in one of those letters where Jesus basically through John is calling out one of the churches where is located the altar to Zeus, aka the throne of Satan?
Yeah, he calls it the throne of Satan, and that it's in the city of Pergamum. He tells them, he says, "I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is." And that was a reference to the altar of Zeus, which was in that city. And he also, calls out by name Antipas, who was then sacrificed to Zeus, the leader of the congregation of Pergamum, was killed by the priests of Zeus and fed to the bull, the brazen bull, where he was lit up and slowly melted. So that's fascinating. This insight that Jesus gives us, that he creates a connection between Zeus and Satan, identifies, it's like removing the veil. And so now we know that the Greco-Roman world that worshipped Zeus and Jupiter as the head of the pantheon was essentially under the influence. That was the realm, of the leader of the fallen angels. That was the territory that he had chosen himself, and that empire, hailed from him. Now, all the letters, all the cities mentioned here have a connection to the fallen angels. Ephesus, we know what happened with Paul when he was in Ephesus, that there was a whole ruckus because it was bad for idol worship business, what he was preaching. So they kind of gathered a crowd against him. It was the center of the worship of Artemis. Ephesus was an important center for that. Another letter he writes is to Smyrna, which was the center of emperor worship. They had won the permission to build a temple to Nero. And Thyatira was a center of worship for Apollo, known as the sun god. And Sardis was home to many mystery cults and religions, and to the magnificent temple of Artemis. The people worshipped Cybele, and they held orgies in their festivals, which is kind of what we see happen at the foot of Mount Sinai.
Right. Just want to get back to the throne of Satan for a moment. You and I have talked about this before, and you were telling me how there was a German archaeologist who discovered this altar to Zeus in Pergamon, and he basically took the entire altar back to Germany, where they built a museum. They reconstructed it. Inside this, the museum holds the entire altar to Zeus, and was it Hitler's chief architect Albert Speer who saw it and was so inspired by it that if you see the documentary Triumph of the Will, the massive stage and backdrop that Hitler is standing on and at Nuremberg is based on this altar to Zeus, this throne of Satan, right?
Yeah. He created a large version for him, Nuremberg, because, as you said, he was inspired, and that's from where the podium that he was standing on, when he was declaring the final solution and eventually the principles that led to the Holocaust, to this Shoah, to this burnt offering. It kind of, it's interesting where the bull was in the original altar, the bull that symbolized Zeus, where this brazen bull where Antipas was fed into, he put the microphone, and so it was interesting, as though this was the voice of Zeus, and from there he stood and he declared the laws, the Nuremberg laws, that led to the Holocaust, and he said to Albert Speer, "I want you to make it like a religious ceremony, a Catholic mass." And so Spear put all of these lights around it, and he lit them up, and they looked like pillars of light.
Right. We should
because
point out not that Hitler was not Catholic. These
No,
were
yes.
occultists. They
It
were
was
not
cult,
Catholic,
and
but
they
he
were all
wanted to
drugged.
liken it to a mass. He hated Christians. Hitler very clearly hated Christians. Obviously, he hated Jews, but he also hated Christians.
Yeah, this was definitely an occult thing. It was hailing back to the worship of the ancient gods, the fallen angels. And so it's fascinating that, as you said, this altar that Jesus talks about in the book of Revelation as the throne of Satan is dug up and brought to Berlin, where it is to this day, in Das Museum die Pergamum, or the Museum of Berlin. And Albert Speer sees it, the architect likes it, and builds a giant version of it. And they put a big Nazi symbol on top of it as well. And there's a footage of the Allies, bombing that symbol off. And from there, Hitler declares the Holocaust. So it's fascinating.
Right. Okay. I want to jump to the throne room. This is
Right.
this is the second vision in the throne room of heaven. And what does John the Apostle see in the throne room?
Well, he sees perhaps, the priesthood of God. He sees the Son of God sitting there and reigning, and he sees those who had been martyred, come back to life, and he sees these living creatures that are worshiping, worshiping God and worshiping the Son, to whom all power has been given.
All right. He sees the cherubim and the seraphim and
Yeah, that's right. He sees these angels, the four living creatures they're called, and they each have 6 wings, full of eyes all around, and they do not rest day or night, chanting, "Holy, holy, holy, the Lord of hosts." And so they're praising the Lord day and night, and he sees God sitting on his throne. And he sees that those who have been martyred are receiving, thrones as well, like smaller thrones, because there are many thrones in heaven, and there are 24 elders dressed in white clothes with golden crowns on their heads. And there's lots of theories about, who these 24 are. Are they each from a different nation? Are they, Old Testament saints such as Abraham and characters like that, and New Testament ones put together? Are they leaders of a cohort, because the priesthood was divided into 24? So are these like divisions essentially of a heavenly priesthood? There's lots of theories, and that's what I mean. It's kind of an enigmatic book.
right. Now the cherubim, the cherubim, was it the cherubim who guarded the throne? These were like, almost like the Secret Service, right? They guarded the throne. Was it the cherubim or the seraphim that guarded the throne?
Well, here it would be the seraphim because they have 6 wings.
The seraphim. All right.
And you're right. Like, these are very high-ranking angels. They stand around the throne of God, so they're very intimate to God. And Satan himself was the leader of the cherubim. So Satan himself was a very high-ranking, angel, very close to God.
Interesting. All right. We're just about rolling into a break here, but when we come back, let's talk about the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. What is that all about? The 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. We'll get into the cosmic war, the beasts, the 7 plagues, the 7 bowls of wrath, the battle of Armageddon. We'll squeeze in as much as we can. Ali Siadatan, thinkagainproductions.com. Don't forget, go to the website, reach out to Ali through the website, and sign up for his 7-week series every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. As he takes a deep dive into the book of Revelation. Back with more of my conversation with Ali right here on The Conspiracy Show. Don't go away.
Shaking the world and seeing what falls. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarah from Zoomer Radio.
The Shaw Festival in
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
Travelinsurance.ca.
Welcome customers back to their store with very special welcome back prices.
The biggest deals on Roncesvalles.
On a huge selection of area rugs, Walturi's.
Pollock's famous cocoa mats and runners.
Plus, luxury vinyl, tile, and carpet remnants, all at huge savings.
Welcome back to Pollock's Carpet Market.
Welcome back to great selection and prices.
See it.
Feel it.
See, leave it.
Pollock's Carpet Market.
Curious as to whether Sam and Jane are actual sisters? The skincare secrets of Robbie Lane. What Eva D is short for. Members of the Zoomer Radio Fan Club can receive the latest information on their favorite radio station through regular e-blasts. Enter all of our exciting contests and have a chance to win a new HD radio for your home or office. So, Norm Edwards, boxers, briefs, or birthday suit? Wouldn't you like to know? Join the Zoomer Radio Fan Club today at zoomerradio.ca. Don't be afraid of the dark. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. To talk to Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
All right, get your questions and comments ready on the phone lines. And you just heard the numbers roll out there. But also, if you're in the YouTube live chat, get your questions and comments. And my live stream producer, Ryan, will curate those and pass those along to me, and we'll get those out. But we'll hold on to those until the second hour. Ali Siadatan stays with us. ThinkAgainProductions.com. As we take a deep dive into the book of Revelation. Well, not so deep. I mean, it's pretty hard to do in an hour, but he'll get into more detail during his 7-part webinar series beginning next Thursday at 7. ThinkAgainProductions.com to sign up. All right, so the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. What is this all about, Ali?
It's about judgment. It really kind of takes us back to the story of Exodus, where God arrives to deliver his people. And before that, there's a war with Pharaoh. And that really is kind of where we get a lot of the characters that feed into the book of Revelation. You know, there's the Pharaoh is the representative of this world leader. And there's going to be, 7 empires that challenge, the covenant that God makes with Israel. There's Egypt, there's Assyria, there's Babylon, there's Persia, there's the Greeks, the Romans, and the 7th empire. We are waiting for it, and that's kind of, there's going to be another Pharaoh, and there's going to be the spiritual forces that were behind the Pharaoh, the gods of Egypt. There's going to be spiritual forces behind this guy as well. It says in the book of Revelation that the dragon, which is the symbol of Satan, gives him all power and authority. And this is something we see also, in the temptations of Jesus, where Satan says to Jesus, if you worship me, I'll give you all the empires of the world that are under my command. You can have Israel and I'll give you the empires. You just have to switch to my side. And Jesus says, it's written, only worship God. So I think the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets are telling us about judgments that, like the ones that fell on the Pharaoh of Egypt long ago, that led to the deliverance of the people of God, these things are going to fall on this empire, this final empire. Now, there are 2 theories. One is that these things have been happening over the past 2,000 years, some of these things have been happening. Others, I believe that, it all begins with the first seal, which is the white horse. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. The white horse is the one that comes bearing a bow and a crown, and the crown that's given to him is different from the crown that's given to the people of God. You have to look at it in the Greek, and there's two different words. This is more like the crown of Caesar. It's that kind of a crown. And God comes with a sword, but this guy comes with a bow. So again, he's more like a conqueror. And so people say, really the apocalypse begins with the opening of the first seal and with the rise of the Antichrist, and he's the first horseman of the apocalypse. And then even though he promises to bring goodness, but what will follow him are the series of 6 seals and 7 trumpets. These judgments actually will come to descend upon his kingdom and his empire and his world.
Okay,
It
so
won't be a time of peace.
excuse me, Ali, are the trumpets like a countdown clock? Like once the 7th and final trumpet sounds,
Right.
that sets the end times into motion?
Well, I mean, it depends where you want to start the clock. Technically, the end times in the book of Revelation, it begins with the rise of the first rider, the first horseman, who many people see as the Antichrist himself. Others will see the horseman as more of a symbol of a trend. That's something. There's kings, there's conquerors, there's empires, that kind of thing. But if you really see the book of Revelation as talking about a very specific future time, above all, it's talking about a time that's ahead of us, then yes, the horseman becomes this, this character. So then there's a series of judgments. There's 7 seals. The first one is the white horseman. And then there's 7 trumpets. So these are all a series of judgments, locusts and hail, and things that sound a lot like what we saw in the story of Exodus over the Pharaoh of Egypt before, he let go the people of God. So, there are specific things given to us, like the 6th trumpet tells us that the great Euphrates River, will dry out so that these armies can come through. And it's interesting that the river Euphrates, which was a mighty river, very wide, has dried up. The people who live in Syria, they built a dam at the foot of the Euphrates, where it begins. That really helped drying it out. That's a very, very huge dam. And then Saddam Hussein wanted to punish the Shia that lived in the south of Iraq so that they could not have water for their marshlands. And so he also deflected the river Euphrates and dam it. And then so that also helped dry it.
Right.
But the prophecy is coming true. And it says that then there'll be this army that marches over, and the number given is 200 million mounted troops. And well, only China can, have an army that big.
Right.
So people go, oh wow, look, the armies of the East coming over the Euphrates. And so they look at China, they look at the river, and this is kind of how we try to understand the book.
Doesn't one of the trumpets, is the 7th trumpet the one that mentions wormwood? And some have suggested that was Chernobyl, because it talks about like the 3/4 of the waters will be poisoned, and they think that it has to do with Chernobyl, which is what Chernobyl means, wormwood, doesn't it?
It does, actually. And it's the 3rd trumpet. And it's a great star called wormwood that falls to the earth. Even though, Chernobyl, what did poison the waters all the way into Switzerland and Europe, and, a deer in Switzerland were dying because they were eating strawberries from the ground that now had been contaminated by this water. But it's not a star that fell into the ground. There's a new book that Tom Horn has written, and he's dug up this asteroid that's on its way to the Earth.
Apophis.
Yes, and it's supposed to hit in 2029, and he says he thinks that's wormwood, but I agree with him that it does seem to point to a star falling to the earth. So this could be an asteroid strike for sure. And just so that we have the time to make this point, I think it's very important. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, because if I were to look at the book of Apocalypse from a bird's eye view, apocalypse means unveiling. It's the unveiling of Jesus Christ. The good news of Jesus does not end at the cross. In fact, the first and second coming put together form what is called the gospel, the good news. He doesn't just save people's souls and then live in an eternal heavenly kingdom that believers go to. He returns to heal the earth completely, physically.
Okay, I got to jump in because we have to take a break. We'll pick up on that point when we come back. Ali Siadatan stays with us, the Book of Revelation, right here on The Conspiracy Show. Back with more in a moment. My name is Richard Serrett.
When in doubt, blame the government. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
Exercise and entertainment.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of BioAstin. That's 75 capsules. Now, BioAstin, or astaxanthin, is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
Go to carp.ca. That's carp.ca. Money you didn't know you had? Well, now you know.
Magic trick number 41. Watch us make the leaves turn color. Okay, so it's not really our trick, but it is a reminder that winter's coming. And things being what they are, we're probably going to be spending a lot of time in our homes. So there's no better time to upgrade your windows and doors and make your home a nice cozy refuge from, well, everything. Visit us at magicwindow.ca. It's not really magic. It's just better, smarter thinking.
When you look at the sky, ever wonder if someone's looking back? This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
All right, we are back with Ali Siadatan, thinkagainproductions.com. We were talking about the 7 seals, 7 trumpets. Let me see, where did we want to go after that? We talked about wormwood and whether or not that's the asteroid Apophis, which is the Egyptian god of chaos, which is supposed to come in April of 2029. Or could wormwood be Chernobyl, as some have suggested? What about the pandemic? Does that we're currently undergoing, does that, do you think, fit in? Is that one of the horsemen? What are your thoughts, Ali?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's on all of our minds. So yes, one of the horsemen, the pale horse, the 4th horse, death and Hades, is that really plague? It was given power to take the 4th of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, death, and the beasts of the earth. Well, not really. It's not really doing that. Where does this pandemic fit in? Definitely plagues are mentioned throughout the Bible as an instrument of judgment, by God. So some people will say, look, this is one of God's judgments. It's what is judgment? The purpose of judgment is to bring people attention back to God, that God is good, that God has a plan for humanity, but He's given us free will. And there's also these, other beings in the universe. They're physical beings like us. They live in the physical universe, and yes, more than beyond. Maybe there's other dimensions and all of these things. Great, but we're all together in a big story, and we have free will, and evil is real. And so these guys have gone with Satan. 1/3 of them has, and we have the choice to go to the dark side, and that leads to judgment and ultimately death and destruction. Or we can turn to God, and God has a plan of redemption and restoration and of blessing. So in that sense, the plagues are seen as an instrument of judgment, and they're mentioned in the book of Revelation. Now, is this very specific plague the fulfillment of, a particular passage? I don't know. The general theme is that there's something dark rising on the earth. God then, is going to bring judgment on this and destroy it and rid the world of this darkness, and then free and redeem the people who've trusted in Him and who belong to Him, and the people that are kind of in the midst of all of this, and they don't really pick a side. They survive the apocalypse. They do make it into His kingdom. They just don't get at this point the eternal body that He promises His disciples, His followers.
What about the idea that this plague or other plagues or other pandemics and the associated, clampdowns on civil liberties and vaccine passports and our, the use of AI and the Great Reset is all playing into the Antichrist system?
Yeah, definitely. So the plague itself is mentioned in Revelation 6. It is part of, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and these are given power over 1/4 of the earth. And so, this is that would be 1.9 billion people currently. So has the pandemic done that? I'm not sure. No, for sure it hasn't. But it has created this global response. It has created this idea of a digital identity system through the vaccination program. There is a verse in Revelation 18 that talks about how the world has been deceived by pharmakeia, by sorcery. But the Greek, because we have the book of Revelation in Greek, and the word used is pharmakeia, which is attributed to a fallen angel who, before the flood, is the founder of this notorious, body of knowledge. Not that there's anything wrong with pharmaceuticals or the herbs of the earth for our health, but it seems that it's part of the whole idea of eugenics, and that sometimes it can be used by the dark side. So the empire, there's going to be a final empire. There's no doubt about that. The Bible is very clear all over the place that there's going to be a final empire and a final emperor. And we haven't seen that for a while. Since the rise of the republics and the fall of Rome, we've seen the different heads of Rome each go take a try at it, whether it's Charlemagne, Napoleon, the British. But today we may see all these different heads from Moscow to DC come together in a coalition and eventually have a leader. And this will be an empire that has AI and has digital identity. And so since the Bible takes us to this extreme point of view, we can now surmise the stepping stones. And so we see that this pandemic has definitely created a lot of stepping stones for the infrastructure of such a thing to be built. And eventually this thing is seen as a plague that's removed by God. I'm not just COVID, but this emperor and this empire is a plague over the human race, that God comes and destroys and removes and restores health to the earth.
Okay, and so the vaccine and the vaccine passport, and I think people know my views on the vaccine passport. I just think it's unethical and probably illegal and all of that. But we'll park that for now. But the idea that some people think that somehow this is the mark of the beast, you can't have the mark of the beast until you have the arrival of the Antichrist, right? Which hasn't happened. So therefore, the vaccine and the vaccine passport cannot be the mark of the beast.
Exactly. I would agree to that. That it's more like the building of infrastructure. It's the first time we're all told that we all have to globally get behind something. Every nation is affected by it. We are told that we should take this mass vaccination program, and that we should sign into a digital system of identity that allows us to travel and cross borders. So I see that it's like a dry run. A lot of infrastructure is being put into place that can be used for more global rulership. And also, I found it very interesting that if there's a theme here, that God is preparing his people for the mark of the beast, that really you get the feeling that if you don't take the vaccine, that you're punished. If you don't take this particular digital identity that comes with the vaccine, you're punished. And so the mark of the beast also has that feeling. It says that if you don't take it, you can't buy, sell, or do commerce. So thinking forward, I thought, what are they going to do to us when we don't take the mark? Because we really can't take that one. They'll probably take us and put us in some sort of a camp where they feed us and shelter us. So we'll somehow appear on the wrong side of the collective reality, and since we won't be able to function, then I guess they'll have to take us to some sort of a concentration camp and take care of us. This is just a theory. I don't know what's going to happen, but I see that there are overlaps, and I see that there's infrastructure being put to place, but it's not exactly the mark of the beast, like you said. It has to be instituted by the Antichrist.
Okay, just have about 2 minutes here before we roll into the second hour. AZ Finn on the YouTube live chat asks, how many seals have been opened and how many trumpets have been blown to date?
Well, if I had the answer to that question, I'd have a best-selling book on my hands that everyone would be reading. The truth is that, ironically, these are the questions that we are all now trying to figure out. Something has changed about our attitude towards prophecy since COVID. And there's a massive, focus on this book. And I know from experience that when something like that happens, God tends to open it up. We are about to see new things in this book, and that's why I'm inviting people to join me in this study, because as we study together, we discover together, and God meets us in the study and reveals things to us. So I don't have a concrete answer to the gentleman's question. I don't think anybody does, but I think that we're going to start, getting into these things as we go forward. I think God is drawing our spirit into it.
All right, we'll take a time out, come back. Ali Siadatan, Think Again Productions will stay with us into hour 2, at least till the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about the cosmic war, the beasts, and the Battle of Armageddon. Also, who is the whore of Babylon? All that awaits on the other side. Stay with us. Hour 2 of The Conspiracy Show. My name is Richard Serrett.
When in doubt, blame the government. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
This is Zoomer Radio Toronto, CFZM FM and CFZM AM, owned and operated by MZ Media Incorporated.
Live from Toronto, Canada, Earth, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio.
Thanks for inviting me into your home, your long haul truck, RV, camper, taxi, your parents' well appointed basement with the simulated wood paneling, electric fireplace, and the painting of dogs playing poker, your loft, that greasy spoon just off the interstate, and your cabin in the woods. Hello to everyone listening in on our flagship station, 740 on the amplitude modulation band and 96.3, sorry, on the frequency modulation band, Zoomer Radio here in Toronto. And hey there to each of you tuning us in on one of our affiliate stations across North America. And hi to those of you streaming us live on the zoomerradio.ca website and on the fabulous and free Zoomer Radio app. Howdy to those of you streaming us live on my YouTube channel, Strange Planet. And of course, how do to those of you gathered in the YouTube live chat. However, and wherever you're listening, I bid thee the warmest of welcomes, and I thank you for your fine company. Ali Siadatan from Think Again Productions is here for the next half hour to discuss the book of Revelation, a.k.a. the Apocalypse of John. And then the last half hour, open lines. Excuse me. All right. So, the cosmic war. What is the cosmic war? And the three great signs in heaven that's mentioned in Revelation, Ali?
Yes. So the cosmic war that the Bible describes really begins in the Garden of Eden, where Satan decides to, challenge the role of humanity in the cosmic order. That Adam is created to bring the instructions of God to the creation, to represent God over the angels, and to rule them. But Satan does not want to accept that. And so he challenges Adam by tricking him to do something that would condemn him to death, according to God's own laws. In a way, like he does with the story of Job, he's essentially challenging the worthiness of Job and the worthiness of Adam, the worthiness of man to have this incredible destiny. And as God is not pleased by this, and God begins a series of judgments over Adam and Eve, but also over Satan, and that plunges us into a cosmic war, because Satan and his angels don't just bow out at that point. They dig their heels into the ground. They have authority. They have rulership over the fallen world. They have a place still in the universe, and they seem to be very bent on fighting to prolong and maintain that authority as long as they can. And what's going to end it is the Messiah, not only, the work on the cross, which is absolutely crucial, like it says in the letter that John wrote, that it is to undo the works of the devil, but also the second coming, where, Jesus goes to heaven, and there are two thrones in heaven, the throne of the Father and the throne of the Son. He receives all authority over all kindred, tongues, and nations. And then he sits at the right hand of God, it says in the scripture, until God makes a footstool for his enemies. And then, a time not known to anyone but the Father himself, suddenly the Son and his armies are returned to the earth to arrest Satan, arrest these angels, destroy the final empire and the emperor, and bring in the Messianic kingdom, an era of peace and prosperity and health and life like we have never known it in all of history. It's a Sabbath of history, and that's where the book of Revelation ultimately takes us.
And there are three great signs in heaven. What do they signify?
So they signify different things. What exactly they mean? I mean, you're asking me very precise questions, and the sun, the moon, and the stars. They appear in the context of a woman. Is that the one that is that the sign you're referring to? They appear around a woman. Is that the context you're referring?
Well, there is a section in Revelation called the three great signs in heaven, right? That before, I guess,
the sixth seal. Yes,
that's the sixth seal.
Yeah, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair. The moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it's shaken by a mighty wind. So going back to the book of Genesis, we are told that God will use the sun and the moon as signaling systems. We're told that in the fourth day of creation, where the sun, the moon, the stars, and the earth are put in some sort of electromagnetic, rotation, orbital, relationship. Not only is it for marking the calendar, God explains that, but also as a signaling system. So when there's, for instance, an eclipse of the sun, and the moon becomes red like blood, and if it falls on one of the appointed days of God's calendar, then it means something. And we do see that, in fact, when that alignment occurs, historical events of great importance happen. Some of the rabbis saw the sun as being something that is for the Gentiles. It's a sign that something's going to happen to the Gentile world, and the moon to the Jewish world. We see when the Lord was crucified that there was an eclipse of the sun. And so again, that kind of points to that. Earthquakes are always a sign of judgment, that God's judgment over something dark and evil is arriving. Like even at the second coming on the Mount of Olives, when the Lord lands, it says in the scroll of Zechariah, there's an earthquake and the Mount of Olives splits into two. So, and there's a fault line that goes from Jerusalem to Kenya. So earthquake is a sign of judgment. Sun and moon changing colors and becoming like black, like sackcloth. So that's an eclipse of the sun, or the moon becoming red. These are pointing to the fact that God is signaling a change in the seasons and times, like the kings of the earth are going to be removed and a new king is going to be installed. Stars are a different matter. Stars are an idiom for angels in the Bible. So we see that it's a recurring motif. So the fact that the stars of heaven fall to the earth, yes, it could be talking about actually like asteroids and things like that, but actually there are passages in the book of Daniel, for instance, that talk about how the Antichrist will speak against the inhabitants of heaven and will even make the stars fall on the ground, which is an idiom for angels. So this I would see more as the War of Angels. Even some people would connect the War of Angels to the UFO phenomenon, and so you could possibly see some UFOs being shot down and brought into the ground, and that could be where the stars symbology takes us into the world of angels.
All right, let's talk about some of the magnificent and frightening beasts. The red dragon.
The red dragon is deciphered for us in that passage, where we are told it's Satan, the ancient serpent. So the book of Revelation, deciphers that one for us.
And there's also a beast that comes out of the sea. Is that also? And is the location significant where this beast emerges?
Yes. Everything is important. So what does the sea represent? And then there's the beast that comes from the earth. What does the earth represent? These become endless questions, where that people start to interpret and study. And one person will say it means, thalassa, that's the Greek word for sea, and that means peoples and nations. So it comes out of democracies, because the sea usually represents peoples. In the symbology of the Bible. So he emerges out of the democracies. That's fine. Another way of looking at it, which is what I would bring to the table, is that the sea was under the rule of, let's say Neptune, for instance. There was a fallen angel that had authority over the waters, and so nations that did well in the sea, like the English, the British, they were nations that had command of the sea, and then the Romans, for instance, were really landlubbers. Like, they hated the sea. They were not naval people. They were very well known for having a weak navy, and they were really an earth power. So when you look at, for instance, Apollo, the sun god, and who's who's symbolized by the sun. Well, in the ancient writings, where he was called Shams in Mesopotamia, the sun god, the sun and the earth are always put into symbiosis, the way that the moon and the waters are. So kind of the moon god and the Lord of the waters, the sun god and the Lord of the earth. So these could actually be realms and boundaries of the power of principalities. So you've got two different principalities from which these characters emerge. That's another way of looking at it.
MG in the live chat asks, well, MG has a question about thrones. How many,
Right.
I think you mentioned this, how many thrones are there in heaven, and what is the source?
The source is Daniel chapter 7. I think it's verse 14, around there, where there's a prophecy from the prophet Daniel about the Son of Man ascending to the Ancient of Days. And Jesus often referred to that prophecy when speaking of himself, identifying himself as being that Son of Man that Daniel is pointing to. And then the Son of Man ascends to the Ancient of Days, which is God. And there we are told, we are given the word thrones in plural. And so we know that in heaven there are thrones. Now, we know there's the Father's throne, God. Then the Son receives a throne, so that's two thrones. Then he comes to the earth and assumes the throne of King David, and that's the 1,000-year rule of Christ. And yes, it is a literal 1,000-year rule. It is a different throne, and this throne of King David is the one he assumes. The only legitimate government that heaven recognizes on earth is the throne of King David, and Jesus is going to inherit that. And then there is these elders who have thrones, who have crowns, and they place it at the foot of God. And so we are told when he returns, he's going to give also thrones and crowns to his faithful, that those who have believed in him from the different nations will serve him in a place of leadership. But in the Bible, leadership always means servitude. So the whole concept actually in the Bible is summarized with the word Elohim, which is a plural word, which it means God, it means gods, but it really means authority and power. And the idea is that God is the leader of all the systems of authority and power in the world of angels, in the world of man. The kings of the earth are chosen by him. Their time of rule is set by him. And even in families, if you look at the kind of the traditional idea of a man, of a father in a family, that authority is also given to him by God. So he must run his family according to God and with humility and service to his wife and children. And so God is the leader of all these thrones, but exactly how many are in heaven, for sure, I can say two: the throne of the Father and the throne of the Son. Beyond that, angels, men, well, I don't really have the precise numbers for all of them.
Okay. The beast that emerges from the sea, that's the one that has, is it 7 heads? And some of those heads have like 10 horns?
Right. So the 7 heads are 7 kings, and they're also 7 empires, right? Like, as I said, one way that people look at it is when God calls Abraham out and signs a covenant with him, or establishes a covenant with him, which is basically the basis of the work of God on earth to establish the Abrahamic covenant. Abraham is challenged, his children, by Egypt. Then they're challenged by Assyria, by Babylon, by Persia, by the Greco-Roman world, so Greece and Rome, and that's 6 empires right there. And so people go, okay, these are the 7 heads, 6 of them are these, and the 7th one we're about to find out. And so these heads of the dragon represent imperial systems that have risen on the world stage with the specific mission of targeting the work of God and targeting Israel. For instance, the Greeks decided to darken the temple and confuse the worship and Hellenize the temple, and that led to the rededication of the temple, which is called Hanukkah. But then the Romans came and they actually destroyed the temple, and they destroyed it on the very day that the Babylonians had destroyed it. In the Hebrew calendar, 5 centuries apart, the Babylonians and the Romans destroyed the temple on the same day, the 9th day of the month of Av. So the idea is that there are these forces that press in, but 7 empires specifically are singled out by Scripture, and these are the 7 heads of the dragon. Now, the 10 horns represent leaders, like they represent the military might and the scepter of rule. So out of these 7 empires, 10 specific leaders, 10 specific kings are singled out to be the object of prophecy and God's judgment.
All right. The Battle of Armageddon. We've got to get to that before we finish here. Obviously, that is crucial. That is central to the story, right? The Battle of Armageddon.
Yes, it's a climax of the judgments of the Bible. It's a physical location, north of Jerusalem, but it's also a symbol of the spiritual war, the cosmic war, and this whole empire system that Satan wants to build, over the human race and control it and mark people and chip people and all of that. It culminates in a great moment of judgment, and the same way that the sea opened up and swallowed up the armies of Pharaoh, Armageddon is in a way the equivalent judgment, as the story of the parting of the sea. God said that he would not destroy the world by water but by fire, and so it looks like he's going to come with some firepower. And there are many passages that describe this. It's the final great battle where God and his angels from heaven show up with their chariots, it says. And these guys that are on the earth, these angelic forces, and the humans that will be with them, there will be many humans that will take on the side of Satan. And there'll be humans that are waiting more to be delivered by God, so they don't take a side in that sense. But this is the climax of this series of seals and trumpets, these judgments that begin over this kingdom. And the seven seals begin when Jesus receives the authority and power from God, and he is found worthy to now begin the system of judgment that will destroy the evil, destroy the empire, and rescue the human race and redeem it. So it's a climax of all of this is the great battle of Armageddon.
Okay, so and that leads into this question from our live chat on YouTube. Andrew Boyle asks, why does Satan continue his destruction of man when he knows God's prophecy? Great question. In other words, Satan, must know. Even Satan can quote scripture. He must know that he loses at Armageddon, doesn't he?
Yeah. So I think that God used strategy with Jesus. God sealed the prophecies of the Old Testament that had to do with the idea that the blood sacrifice of the Lord would provide an atonement for the people of the earth. He hid that from Satan. So Satan thought, by killing, the Messiah, the King, I'm going to continue to have an empire forever, because the guy who is going to inherit this is done. And when he destroyed the Lord came back to life, and then Satan realized, all of these passages came to life not only for the Jewish people, but also for the angels, and they understood the mystery of atonement that was, hidden in plain sight by the power of God. And so at that point, I think you're right. He thought, I'm done. Now I see everything is lost. So what Scripture says, first of all, is that he's going to do his worst because he knows his time is short. It says that in the book of Revelation. So there's a bit of a vindictiveness, it seems here.
I see, yeah.
A kind of a rebellion against the judgment of God. And there's this idea of prolonging the empire. For instance, if the Jews are coming back to the land, and that's the fulfillment of prophecy, well, let's have a Holocaust. Let's stop that process. If they've come back to the land, let's try to gather all the nations of the earth against them. Because we don't want this picture where the Jewish people, the Messiah, and the land, once they're connected together, the peace on earth arrives. That's what the prophets tell us. So Satan's trying to prolong his empire by sabotaging the conditions that fulfill the prophecies of God.
What is, or who, I suppose, is the great whore?
So I think that the great whore of Babylon, you see, when you mentioned the throne of Satan in Pergamum, it's used in Asia Minor, but when you kind of go, well, who was Zeus? Well, Zeus is the Greek word for Marduk. That was the Babylonian name of Zeus, Marduk. And the cult of Marduk was in the city of Babylon, where the great ziggurat existed. And before that, his name was Enlil, and there was another Mesopotamian town from where Enlil ruled, and all the kings of Mesopotamia went there to receive the blessing from the priests of Enlil before they took the throne. So I think that she is really this occult competing religion that poured into the nations. It has taken many shapes and many names, but ultimately there's only two religions, if you will, the one that comes from the dark side and the biblical faith. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but if I'm to present this information accurately and correctly, this is where the conclusion takes us to. Humans of all kinds, there's good, bad, and ugly among all of us. It's not about, nations and people. It's about just this belief systems coming from these mysterious beings that we're all supposed to worship, the gods. Well, who for a moment, we should just take some time out to figure out who's who and what's what. And question anything and everybody. So I think the Mystery Babylon represents this alternative system of thought, of belief, of religion that points the world to these spiritual forces with Satan at the helm, and competes with the revelation and word of God that has come through the prophets of Israel, through his Son, and through the Holy Spirit.
All right, Ali, we'll take one final time out, come back. We'll just keep you till the bottom of the hour. And then open lines after that. We'll do Ask Me Anything. But for now, we continue to delve into the book of Revelation. Ali Siadatan stays with us. Get your comments and questions ready. Back with more in a moment.
Curiosity, or did the devil make you do it? Whatever the reason, welcome back to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serra from Zoomer Radio. To talk to Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
A million Zoomer magazine readers say they always try to look their best. Are you one? Then don't miss the article on the latest tech treatments for.
Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon-60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
Consultation, visit assurancehomecare.ca.
Now serving Toronto and the Niagara region.
The fans are in good form, and so are their sporting heroes. But are the leagues healthy financially? Or has the pandemic changed the game? There's a lot to discuss on the Naz and Wally Sports Hour, Sunday morning at 9 on Zoomer Radio.
Have you tried Pizzaville's thinner, lighter, and tastier 11-inch extra thin crust gourmet pizzas? Order 2 11-inch extra thin crust gourmet pizzas for only $19.99. Order online at pizzaville.ca or dial pound 3636 from your cell.
The truth is not out there. It's right here. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
All right. A few minutes remain with Ali Siadatan, and then the last two segments of the program, Ask Me Anything. So the Whore of Babylon, the judgment on Babylon. So the judgment will be, and Babylon, I guess, will be the final empire, the Antichrist system. Is that correct?
It's the religion of it. It's
got it.
It's the spiritual part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Saint Michael asks, what is the significance of the 3 secrets of Fatima, and why is the third secret hidden?
Well, I think that's a revelation from the Queen of Heaven. Uh, so in my angelology, the Queen of Heaven is not really the mother of Jesus, but she's an ancient angel who's mentioned also in the book of Jeremiah as something that the Jewish people are worshiping and they should not be. And before the book of Jeremiah, she has a long career in Mesopotamia. Inanna is her original title, and she likes that title, Queen of Heaven. So I don't know if I can really comment on it. It's not a question that's from the Bible. I think that's best asked from a Catholic specialist, and I'm not even sure if it's a revelation we can even trust.
All right. So, part 3 of Revelation. Heaven is once again opened, and the 1,000 years of Christ's kingdom on earth. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So of Armageddon, and then God defeats the force of evil. It's kind of like, imagine the Nazis have taken over the world, and then God comes and defeats the Nazis and frees the earth. The cavalry arrives. It's got a happy ending. We are kind of at the end of a bitter time of history. The second coming in the Bible is actually called the Day of the Lord, which assumes we are living in the night of history right now. And so the day is about to dawn on us. And in some ways, it has begun at the resurrection. And then he goes to God and he sends the Holy Spirit, and all the nations come to know him, and these spiritual forces weaken. But then there's a final empire which occurs during a time where the Jews are once again a nation in the land of Israel, which is what we've seen in the 20th century. And this final empire is then defeated by the second coming of Christ and the establishing of a 1,000-year rule, where every passage in the Bible that describes this 1,000 year, it's very idyllic. Even things that are natural predators are living in harmony together, and there is justice and peace on the earth, and the laws and rules of God's kingdom are what the government functions around. So things that are revealed perhaps in the books of Moses, form the basis of the rule of government. Everyone who has believed in Jesus for the past 2,000 years is brought back to life, or if they're already alive, great. They're given a new body, which is a body like the one he had when he came back from the dead. And not only is it a body that's able to be sustained eternally, but also it is one that naturally functions in cooperation with the kingdoms, with God's ways. And it's not like the body we have today that, even though in our hearts we want to walk one way, we tend to kind of walk in a different way. We don't have that conflict, so it's a new body. And the people who receive this new body are given authority. And the books of the prophecy of the Bible tell us that the people that survive the apocalypse, enter into this kingdom, but they're not regenerated because they never came to faith in the life that they had here. And so they continue to live long lives, but they continue to live and die, and they can also sin. And there's several passages in the Bible that point to this, and that's what we see after this great Sabbath of history, which lasts 1,000 years. And by the way, even before the flood, no one lives 1,000 years. So 1,000 years is symbolic of something significant, of something that's restored. And it seems to actually be long enough to be a day in the cosmic calendar, not just the human calendar, but in the calendar of God and angels. It seems 1,000 years qualifies as a day. So there is something significant. There's a time of peace and rulership, but Satan is released after 1,000 years. And he does tap into this sinful nature, it seems, of the humans that continue to live but have not been regenerated. And he mounts a final rebellion to take back the kingdom from Jesus. It's like a final test for humanity, like the way that you would test gold in the fire. And here, God himself arrives, the Father, and he arrives in this thing which is our final destination, called the heavenly Jerusalem. And it is, I don't know if it's a cube, because when you kind of reminds me of the Borg ship, when you kind of look at the measurements of this heavenly temple, the temple at the center of time and space where God himself dwells and seems to be a moving object. We then ascend into that temple. Everyone who's ever lived is brought back to life and judged in front of the throne of God. Those whose names are not written in the book of life are, apparently destroyed, and everybody else joins the people who were already rejuvenated and resurrected at the first coming, at the second coming, and joins them and enters into the heavenly Jerusalem, where we meet God face to face, which is a sign of great intimacy. We're given names, which are functions that we're going to have in this universe, and we then resume our original purpose for which Adam was created, to bring the instructions of God into the universe and into creation, to govern over the angels, and to serve under God and the Messiah. The earth is the incubation chamber of the immortal children of God.
And so what happens to the planet? Does it continue, or?
No, it says that there's going to be, it says in the book of Isaiah and the book of Revelation at this point takes on that theme, that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So what, it does say there's going to be new earth as well. So there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and the corruption is done away with. And the people who receive Jesus today, in a way, they are the beginnings of this new creation that finally finds its culmination 1,000 years after the coming of Christ. That's when it really blossoms, and we get the new heaven and new earth, and we enter into this temple at the heart of time and space and sit in the presence of God himself.
So, two things. Number one, how are we certain that what John was writing about was not our future, but what was happening? Because again, the ancient world was in the midst of war at this time. The Christians were being exiled. You had the Roman emperors. It was the Flavian dynasty and so forth. How do we know that when he was talking about Antichrist and Babylon, he wasn't referring to his own time, Rome?
Well, he was, because when you look at kind of a pattern of among the Hebrew prophets, because John was a Hebrew prophet, is that in the Greek thinking, we think more in a linear way, like every prophecy has a specific fulfillment. And then we argue, go, no, this prophecy was fulfilled here, no, this prophecy was fulfilled there. But the Hebrew prophetic scriptures are actually written in a system of spiral pattern, kind of like the horns of a ram or something, where it spirals, where it actually addresses needs of the lifetime of the prophet. That's where it begins. Like if God tells Ezekiel, you're going to go back to this land, is because Ezekiel lives in exile. Sure, this prophecy applies to today's return to the land as well, but when it was spoken to Ezekiel, it actually addressed his immediate concerns. So these prophecies address the immediate concerns of John and the early church and this great persecution in Rome and all that stuff. They begin there, but then they spiral in a system of pattern into what has now taken 2,000 years, since Jesus hasn't really returned yet and his kingdom on earth hasn't been established. And then they have a final climactic fulfillment that then closes the matter. That is the pattern of how Hebrew prophecy works throughout the Bible. Like when God says to Israel, out of Egypt I called my son, there's nothing in that passage that would tell you that's anything other than Israel. But then Matthew says, no, this was also about Jesus. So it was a pattern. It had a double meaning. And so this is kind of how, it all works. So yes, it addresses that at the time of John, but it also addresses the Acharit Hayamim, the end times, the climax of the age, the end of one season of history and the birth of the next season of history. It really focuses a lot of its firepower there in this spiral form of how Hebrew prophecy works. As far as Rome is concerned, I don't be so sure that we are not still living under Rome. You look at like the American system of the Senate, the president, and the architecture of the Capitol Hill and of many of the structures in Washington. They are on purpose designed to look Roman. When we see, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, he said I heard him once say that, God does to Israel, whatever you do to Israel, God does to you. If you bless Israel, God will bless you. If you curse Israel, God will curse you. And he said Rome destroyed Jerusalem.
All right,
And
I got to jump in here because we're out of time, Ali.
So we're still in Rome. We're still in Rome. That's the summary of it.
You mentioned Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. Actually, he'll be joining me on Coast to Coast this coming Friday night. Now, your web series, you're on Zoom, on Revelation. Give us the details very quickly one more time.
Go to thinkagainproductions.com and email me, and I will send you the details.
thinkagainproductions.com every Thursday beginning next week for 7 weeks, 17 minutes each. Ali, terrific job. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. 17 minutes, but thank you.
Ali Siadatan. All right, open lines when we come back. Ask me anything. Stay with us.
If you're sure
Magic trick number 7. The famous disappearing window break trick. It's not that big a trick, really. We just got rid of it. It was always the first part of a case movement into fail.
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
Attention giants. We ask that you take the news to your giant friends and families that the borders of Little Canada are now officially open. Giants of all sizes and ages can now experience a miniaturized version of Canada. Find out more by using your giant fingers to search Little Canada on your enormous electronic devices. We look forward to welcoming you and all the gigantic giants like you to Little Canada.
This Saturday on Finding Your Bliss, longtime TV and radio star Jennifer Valentine, one of the most recognizable faces on morning television, having hosted Live Eye for 23 years. Actor, singer, and Instagram influencer, Jennifer Valentine is at home interviewing high-profile celebrities and equally fulfilled giving back to her community. Our featured artist of the week is Jennifer's talented daughter, Georgia Valentine. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bliss Minute and FindingYourBliss.com. And join us this Saturday at 1 p.m. on Zoomer Radio. Keeping an eye on the New World Order. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
All right, welcome back. Open lines now until the top of the hour, and you can ask me anything, or you can just comment maybe on a previous show you've heard. Maybe you have a suggestion for an upcoming show. And speaking of upcoming shows, let me just give you some programming notes, because there's some things going on you need to know about. Next week on the program, Don Jeffries. He's been with us a number of times in the past, and his book, which is a really a landmark book, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776 to 1963. That book is now being released in paperback this month. So Don Jeffries returns to the program next week for the full 2 hours, and we'll go back and revisit crimes and cover-ups in American politics, 1776 to 1963. That's for the full 2 hours, by the way. And I want to give you a heads up also that I am heading off to Greece on Monday, the 11th. And some of these, we're going to continue to deliver brand new shows to you while I'm away. We're bringing in a few guest hosts, including the aforementioned Don Jeffries. And Don will be not only my guest next week on the program, but then on October the 24th, Don will be guest hosting live from Virginia. And his guest will be Janet Phelan. Then, let's see, October 31st, the guest host will be our previous guest tonight, Ali Siadatan. And let me see if I have that book here. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here it is. He's going to be interviewing, I believe we have this, I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but Donna Howell and Ali Henson. The book is Dark Covenant, How the Masses Are Being Groomed to Embrace the Unthinkable While the Leaders of Organized Religion Make a Deal with the Devil. Let me just hold that up. Can you see that all right? All right. That's Ali Siadatan guest hosting on October the 31st. And then, so I'll be in Greece until mid-November, but I'll also be pre-recording some shows while I'm there. And because of the time difference, it's like 7 hours different. Anyway, all new shows coming up right until the end of November and beyond. But some guest hosts, Don Jeffries, Ali Siadatan, and who else do we have? We're working on a show with Thomas Horn. He's got a book out, a new one, Zeitgeist 2025, Countdown to the Secret Destiny of America. So we hope to get Thomas Horn on at some point in November. And I think you heard me mention J.J. French, founding member of Twisted Sister, who was with me on Coast to Coast last week. And he's got a new bizmoir, he calls it, half memoir, half business manual, if you will. A lot of great life lessons in there. So JJ will be on the program, on this program, coming up in November as well. All right, that's a look ahead for the Conspiracy Show. Let's say hi to Tony in my hometown of Brantford, Ontario. Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm very good, Richard. Yourself?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, good. By the way, it's Brampton, not Brantford. Sorry about that.
Ah, no worries. Brampton. All right.
By the way, I love Strange Planet and love your Richard Serrett show on 960 also.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Hey, so I have a quick comment regarding the White Horseman.
Yes.
I believe, just from my own sort of personal studies, that he's actually riding, and that the white part of the horseman represents, I guess, the medical community and big pharma, and the whole medical tyranny represents the white horse. Then we've got the crown, which in Latin is probably also known as the corona, the crown. So he's riding on a white horse, the medical community. He has this crown. And what I've always found perplexing was the bow without the arrow. And then a friend of mine was doing the same sort of research, and he looked up in the Strong's Concordance and discovered that the bow is not an actual bow and arrow, but the bow references a simple cloth. That's what Strong's Concordance says about the bow, that he conquers with a simple cloth, which could almost represent the mask of what's going on today, the masking.
A simple cloth. Oh, interesting. It's not a bow, it's a cloth.
It's a simple cloth. That's what Strong Concordance says. And the reference number to that is 5115. If you look up Strong's Concordance, it'll reference the bow in the book of Revelation, and it'll refer to the bow as not a bow and arrow, but just as a simple cloth. So he's got the crown, the corona. He's riding the white horse, which represents the whole medical community. And lastly, that simple cloth is the bow.
Wow.
So the white horseman is riding, and the next horseman is going to be the red horseman, the horseman of war. And we know that China and Taiwan are having some issues right now.
Indeed, indeed. Wow. Well, that's pretty chilling, Tony. great work connecting those dots. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Calling from Brampton, not Brantford. All right, we'll take a quick time out. We'll get to our good pal Skip from Connecticut, and we have some people lining up at the live chat with questions as well. Open lines and ask me anything as we wrap up. Last call to the phones on the Conspiracy Show. Don't go away.
You want the truth? You can handle the truth. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. To get the truth, call Richard now at 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of BioAstin. That's 75 capsules. Now, BioAstin or astaxanthin is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
Uncovering facts and offering a different view of the universe. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
All right, open lines, ask me anything. Let's go to the phones. And Skip is joining us from Connecticut. Hey, Skip.
Sure, yeah. Hope you have a great time coming up in Greece with the weather. It should be warmer. But I have 2 thoughts on Revelation. One would be it somewhat contradicts Paul's letters, to me, because it's depicting people that are following either a beast system or one big individual. And like Paul says in one of his letters, he says, be strong in the Lord, which means you've cultivated your own identity in the Lord, that close relationships, and you would be able to withstand these outer pressures from that. And so I see that as kind of a contradiction. In other words, it's making the people in the book of Revelation look like sheep, basically.
Interesting.
And my other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, it says in, I believe, chapter 3, that it says to one church. Now, this is talking to people in a church, not outside the church. It's saying, repent or I will kill thee with death. So it's showing like another side of the Lord. And if you look at, it's almost like giving notice. Like, for example, in the book of Jonah, Nineveh was given notice through Jonah. You know, the Lord's going to destroy you if you don't repent in X amount of days, quite soon. And they did repent. Now, Sodom and Gomorrah, it doesn't look like they were given the warning from the depictions in that, although Lot's wife was given a warning, don't look back, and she didn't know the consequences would be that she'd be turned into a pillar of salt. So you do wonder if, like, people, at least they're given the favor of being put on notice, you know, repent or else. So that's another aspect I think that's interesting to Revelation. You know, maybe you're given notice, you know, you better change or else.
Skip,
given
great
one warning, you know.
Right. Great insights as always. Thanks for the call. Have a good morning. All right, let's go to the YouTube live chat. And Craig asks, do my views on extraterrestrials conflict with my views on the Bible? That's a great question. Well, my views on extraterrestrials are that the best way that the ET phenomenon fits into the biblical narrative is that they are interdimensionals. And so they are from the angelic realm. That's what I believe. So if we're talking about the angelic realm, we're talking about fallen angels, and we're talking about, you know, God's messengers. That's how I perceive the ET UFO phenomenon. It's not particularly a popular point of view in the UFO community, if I can use that term, but that's the way I look at it. I mean, it has to fit for me. It has to square in the biblical narrative. They're not just some, you know, extraterrestrial interlopers. Everything that happens here has to fit into the narrative, and if it doesn't, well, it has to. I mean, that's just what I believe. Now, the Roman Catholic Church says that there's nothing in the Bible that precludes the existence of other extraterrestrial civilizations, and that they are all part of God's creation. So that's another way of looking at it, I suppose. Put it this way: if we ever get disclosure, UFO disclosure, or if the extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, whatever you want to call them, make themselves known to all of us, it's not gonna change my faith. It's not gonna change my point of view and my faith in the Bible. All right, I hope, Craig, that answers your question. Roger Vega asks, November 22nd is coming up. Who do you have lined up for a JFK show? Also says, it's sad that Jim Mars isn't around. Very true. How long has it been since Jim passed away? 4 or 5 years, maybe? Well, I guess Jim DiEugenio is just done some terrific work. And I had Jim, I think I had Jim on this program a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Brian, do you remember when we had Jim DiEugenio? He had just announced this new documentary that he basically wrote. It's based on his research, and it was directed by, and I guess produced by, Oliver Stone. So it's I guess we have to do something on November 22nd. Let me see. Does the show actually land on the 22nd this year? I don't think it does. The 21st. It lands on the 21st. So I don't have anyone lined up yet, but we probably should do something. This will be, 58 years. And people just are not tired of it. They just want to hear more and more and more about it. So if you have any suggestions who you'd like to hear on a special JFK show on November the 21st into the 22nd, just contact me through the website, strangeplanet.ca, and let me know. Jim DiEugenio, it could be Jim, or it could be someone else. Let's see, who do we have here? Show Me the Truth 74. Richard, who or what influenced your desire to spread the word? When you say spread the word, I guess you mean what, the gospel or some other truth? I'm not sure what exactly you mean. Spread the word. Well, I bring people on who talk about the Bible from time to time and biblical prophecy, but I don't see my role on this show, aside from providing a platform from time to time to people to talk about biblical prophecy and so forth. But I don't want to proselytize on the air, but I do, confess my faith and make that known, because for some, that's a bias, right? This is my bias. I lay it on the table, but it's not part of orthodoxy to proselytize. We don't go knocking on doors and handing out pamphlets or standing on street corners with placards and sandwich boards and hollering out biblical verses and so forth. All right, let's see. Do we have anyone else in the? I think that about covers it in the YouTube live chat for now. We have one more. Oh, Toxic Canadian. Who are some? Oh, this is a good one. Who are some guests you have not been able to interview? Who would you absolutely love to interview? Oh, that's a great question, Toxic Canadian. I was thinking the other day, because I had Lisa Peace on the program, and or on Coast to Coast, actually, and I had her on my podcast, and she's a Bobby Kennedy assassination researcher, and she was instrumental in getting Bobby Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr., to meet with Sirhan Sirhan in prison, the supposed gunman. And then recently we had a parole hearing, and Sirhan Sirhan, according to the advice of the parole board, they are suggesting that he be released after over 50 years in prison. Still has to be approved by the governor. But it's quite possible Sirhan Sirhan would be released, and I'm sure when he gets out, he never wants to talk about it again, and doesn't want to be bothered, which I would respect. But I would love to talk to Sirhan Sirhan on this program, and I would love to interview Bobby Kennedy. All right, let's see, who do we have next? John Dooley. John Dooley can't get Coast to Coast AM in Scarborough and is looking for some suggestions. I get this question a lot. So as far as I know, and incidentally, a Coast to Coast I'll be hosting next Friday and Saturday. The 7th, is that the 7th and 8th or 8th and 9th? Anyway, Friday and Saturday on Coast. There are no stations in Ontario carrying Coast to Coast anymore. There is a station in New York. Don't know if you can pull it in on your terrestrial radio. What I suggest people do is go to coasttocoastam.com, the website, and you can find somewhere on there, I think it's under media in the menu bar, and then local stations, media, local stations. Find any affiliate that is also located on your mobile device on Simple Radio. Download the Simple Radio app on your phone or on your tablet, and then look for one of those Coast affiliates. I listen to Coast now on the phone at night on a station out of Kentucky. I believe it's WKCT, WKTC, or WKCT. Anyway, that's the best thing. You got to listen until a station in Ontario picks up Coast. You've got to listen on an app or stream it from one of the affiliates on their website. All right, John, hope that helps. Great questions, great comments. Thank you all. All right, back next week with Don Jeffries, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, for the full 2 hours. Hope you'll be along for that. In the meantime, don't be afraid. There's nothing concealed that won't be revealed, and nothing hidden that won't be made known. What you hear in the dark, speak in the light. What I say in a whisper, proclaim from the housetops. Move over, Aphrodite, I'm coming home. Good night.